Start with just us. So thank you again for coming tonight. Tonight, I'm on a different schedule. This morning, exactly. So I guess we've got the one mic. It's okay. That's great. We'll all join up here. So Anne and Brian, tell us a little bit about how you came to learn about the Bomberos and decided to take up this story.
I'll do the first part, and you do the second part.
Okay, go for it.
We have known Quincy for many years from being in Key West, and he does a lot of work with the Rotarians going down to South American countries for water reclamation and that sort of thing. And he kept hearing these stories about these little boys up in the mountains, like kind of ghosts in the mountains. There you are. Hello. He can tell this story much better than I can. Our director, Quincy Perkins.
Yeah, Quincy.
Thank you. Sorry for running a little late there. We ran into Victoria traffic. I want to thank, first of all, Anthony for this entire week has just been incredible. So thank you, Anthony, and thanks for having this film here. Really appreciate it. Yeah, this film is just incredible. You know, we've made it over a 6-year period now from when I first started the original Kickstarter. And it's just so special to me that, you know, kind of sharing a small corner of the world with some really great audiences because, you know, a long time ago someone said sort of the more personal you get, the more universal you get. And I think that's really true with this story that, you know, this tiny little pocket of the world is really a great universal story. So, yeah.
So one of the questions that we had was about how much research you did going into it and how long the shoot was when you were there.
So we went down there 4 different times over 3 years. You know, I didn't know much about these kids. I didn't know where they were. I didn't know anything other than a gentleman who in Peru had told me about these kids that save lives on go-karts up in the mountains. So we didn't even know where they were. And Brian, who went down there with me the first time, it took us a while just to even figure out where they were. You know, it's about 180 miles of road that stretches from, you know, 11,000 feet up in the Andes Mountains down to the Amazon basin. And that's where these kids work. And as you can see in the film, it was very foggy and you know, sharp corners, and you couldn't really see around corners. And so finding them was tough. Then gaining their trust was a whole nother thing, kind of, you know, spending time with them and allowing them to open up, which is really difficult for young kids facing a camera with a white guy up in the mountains. They were kind of like, what's this guy doing here? And then after that, it was figuring out you know, I had no idea that the narco-terrorism was happening in this area. The Shining Path, I had known about this political group, but I had no idea that they were still around. And so that added a whole nother. So the story we really didn't find until we came back to the editing room. So we went down there and just kind of shot terabytes and terabytes of footage, and then drove Ann and Brian crazy with different editors trying to figure out what the story was. You know, and I think we went through 6 different editors, 5 or 6 editors. Because, you know, it was just so much footage and they would kind of burn themselves out. So it was a really long process, and we went through a lot of different cuts. And
it was all in Spanish, so it was not like you're editing an English language film. You have to translate what you've got, and then you have to edit it. And it's like, that was tough.
Yeah, it was really tough. It was strange because I think we had like 2 editors on this that didn't even speak Spanish. And so I would just kind of tell them this is what this is about, and they would put the chunks together. And then really our final editor, Kareem Lopez, to whom we owe so much of this film, is Puerto Rican by descent and speaks the language. But even he would sit there and go, I have no idea what these kids are saying, because they would speak in slang a lot of times. Yeah, which is also, I was having this conversation the other day. When we delivered this film, the film is currently on Amazon.com as well. So if you ever want to watch it again, or if you want to recommend it to people, if you're a Prime member, you can go on Amazon and watch this for free right now. But we had to send them what are called deliverables. And deliverables are all the packages that you send to the distribution company, including subtitles. Well, when you're doing a foreign language film, usually you send off the film and they put it through a computer, and the computer will have voice recognition in different languages and will type out the subtitles. That was not the case with this film, because they speak so much slang they couldn't put it through a computer, so we really found out how expensive subtitling was as well. But you have to deliver that to Amazon also, and that was just another difficult thing in the process of getting this film out there.
Well, one of the things in the final editing that I really appreciated was that it seems like there are a lot of just periods of silence and of really watching, just letting the viewers participate and watch and get to know these characters. So tell us a little bit about that, about balancing this wonderful, very evocative landscape footage that sometimes really has no dialogue with some of the interviews and more of that footage.
Yeah, I think, I'm a product of like 80s films, and Stand By Me was really like just such a massive film for me. In like Goonies, any of these sort of young boy coming of age movies, I loved as a kid. The Sandlot, just groups of boys. And so when I heard about this story, I was like, yes, this is my chance to like do my own kind of boys coming of age film. And I realized once I got there that they had such, they really had created their own ecosystem, their own, sort of way of life there, and it was so distinct that I was going to have to really stand back, and there was not going to be any manipulating that I could do of them. They were kind of had their own life going, and so it was really for me an experiential documentary. It's from, someone really trying to take a look into this life. Another part of it is I didn't want it to be one of those documentaries of like the white person that goes down to save these poor people. Like, I've seen a lot of these documentaries, and the film's not about me. It's about these kids. And there's some of the few people I've ever met in my life that I can say, yep, you're a hero. Like you're an actual physical hero. And so it was really about trying to just stand back and show, the world that we were in, hopefully some of the danger that we were in without actually getting into some, although we did. And really, what was the editing process of showing, these kids day in and day out and what they did and over time for that coming of age part of it. I don't know if I answered the question.
No, I like it. So Anne and Brian, tell us a little bit about the challenges of producing a film like this.
Well, it was our first doc out of the box, and there was a little bit of fear, but knowing Quincy and knowing his past and what he's done, it made it a lot easier. But going down, as Quincy was saying, and really not knowing what the story was going to be was one of the most interesting parts. And I mean, I'm pretty well traveled all over the world, but not knowing this part of the world, and being in an area, and after finding out that the Shining Path is right there, insurance was definitely an issue, and covering all the equipment, covering our asses basically. And there was some challenges trying to get, we had bricks and bricks of footage, and we thought, okay, well, we'll be able to just transfer it back to the States really easy. Well, render. It really never happened. So that was one of the biggest challenges. And again, just finding the story. Quincy had an idea when we went there, but finding the arc changed daily, because first of all, finding the kids, as he said, and going up and asking people, and people aren't so forward and just saying, oh yeah, the kids live here, just go knock on the door. It wasn't that way. We would take daily trips up, and we would go by all these small little shacks on the side of the road and actually look for the carts. And that's how we actually found a lot of them. They'd park the carts under the house, lean them against the side of the house. And then it was, once we were able to find where they were, because they travel, they actually set up encampments, kind of Lord of the Flies kind of thing. So, actually finding them and then gaining the trust of the children, young men and children, but gaining their trust, that was half of it. And then, as I said, the arc changed daily. And once Quincy got the idea in his mind that yeah, these kids live under this, under danger every day, but yet they're still kids and they want to be kids. It was game changer right there. So the story kind of took its own life.
I had a question too about some of the shot planning. There's some really wonderful point of view shots where you get the enormity of the trucks, or just really, traveling with the kids on the. So how much did you plan ahead for that, or how much of it was really just getting as much footage that you could, or?
Well, I knew also that I wanted to sort of tell it from their POV, and so that meant sort of like getting down to their size, down to their height. So a lot of it was, kind of shooting at their eye level, squatting down, and I rode on the carts with them, which I'll never do again because it was incredibly scary. I was like, yeah, I could, hop on here. They were like, yeah, come on, man. And I think they had a really good joke seeing me like in the back, like holding on to these carts, like, flying down.
Blind corner, and here comes an 18-wheeler coming the opposite way, and you're below.
Right. You see underneath all of the semis coming at you. Right.
It's like not cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I think a lot of it was, I really allowed myself. I mean, I think part of the good thing about gaining their trust was that it allowed me to put the camera down. And I went out and I played soccer with these kids. We would eat lunch with them and just kind of hang out and joke, and we wouldn't film any of it so that we would become friends with them. But that really allowed me to not go in there and just start shooting and figuring stuff out. And it wasn't so much like a movie production as much as I was hanging out with friends and I'd pick up my camera once in a while. But yeah.
Let's take some questions from the audience if we have any. Yeah.
So we got kidnapped. Yes. Yeah. So we went to a trucker facility, like basically a depot where these truckers sort of stop on the road. And my second cameraman, Peter Mihalovich, who's a childhood friend of mine as well, he and I were there doing interviews with truckers, and we had some policemen come up in a truck and say, you guys can't be in this area, it's dangerous, can we see your papers? And we handed them our passports, and they said, your papers aren't right, come with us. And we went about a mile down the road, and they just went and took off these fake police shirts that they were wearing. And they took us to this like abandoned church building, and basically took us for money and took us to the ATM, and then we called the police. They let us go, and then we called the police, and then the police took our statements, and then the police shook us down and said, well, let's go to the ATM so you can pay us now. And that was really difficult because it was like, it was 12 hours or something we were, and it was, they had guns, and we were really scared, and, Pete and I kind of looked at each other and said, like, hey, if, something happens here, like, tell my parents I love them, because, we were really like, it was really dangerous. And then we got back, and we couldn't say anything about it. Because, except to Aunt. Well, they were trying to find us, too.
We're safe, but we need more money in the account because, I'm like, what?
I took all day, and, I switched gears because, thankfully, I woke up that morning, and they're like, no, we got this because we're going to be riding in the truck, and you're a big guy, whatever. So I stayed behind, and when all of a sudden I get this call from his then girlfriend saying, look, they've been taken into custody. So I'm in Lima, and my Spanish is not that good. I'm trying to figure out, okay, what to do. So I'm staying in a hotel. Luckily, the head of security at the hotel was an ex-cop. So they worked with me to help find them. Finally, I get the call, 10, 12 hours later, and, thanking God that they were safe. And then I said, okay, let's go out for beers.
But it was really, there's a really great communication system up and down that road. And we were notified a lot of times by the kids who would say, you guys need to set your cameras down, lay low. There were a lot of times where Javert's house, we would, sort of be hiding. We'd go back. He's got a sort of little farm area behind his house with a grenadine sort of pasture, and we would hide under those plants, and they would tell us, these kids were very much aware. They were also really concerned about their own safety, and that was something that at the very beginning I let them know that I'm never going to try to put them in danger either. And so I asked them, if you ever feel like we're making you targets, or if you ever feel like we're bringing too much focus to you, let me know. And they would talk with me about that. And there were many times actually where they said, we're done filming for a couple days, and we just kind of had to hang out because people got noticed that there was like a white guy with a camera on this mountain.
It's real. It's very real. You see, you hear about it, you don't really think about it, but then all of a sudden you'll see a flatbed truck coming by with guys with AK-47s and AR-15, with all in black with hoods. So, and they're like, get down.
Yeah.
And, sure.
Yeah. 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 Yep. Sure. No, they really lived together. I mean, this was a family, and they would kind of come together and doing a lot of eating. I spoke the Spanish. I'm fluent in Spanish. I worked for National Geographic for 4 years, as well in South America, out of the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador and Chile. So I was well versed in kind of. But again, it was, I got there and they spoke a very specific dialect of Andes Mountains, Spanish. And then they also speak a lot of Quechua, which is that very like traditional old Spanish, old Indian Spanish of the mountains as well. So that was, and I don't speak that, so that was difficult. Yep. So, so there are two things that have happened since the movie came out. One is that the boy with crutches, we raised money enough for him to go get surgery, and he's now like walking but the bad story is Clinton, who is the youngest one of the group, nobody knows where he is. They think he to this day. But I went down there, was that, a year ago? Was that? About a year ago, I went down there. We had raised some funds. I think we raised something like $10,000. Went down there. I knew charity is a really difficult thing because I can't like go down there and give these kids money to go to college in Lima, in the city, where they have no idea what they would do there. And then even if they graduated college, they'd be like, what do we do, all of our life? And they have such a strong ecosystem there, and they are so loved by the town and the people there that I didn't want to upset that ecosystem, that balance. And so it was really like I did want to help them, but I didn't know what that meant. We talked with legislators. One of the big things was getting some laws written that didn't allow banks to hold any prejudice against these people, like Javier when he came in for a loan, microloans, right? Because they live off microloans because the temperature or the climate's changed so much that sometimes they need to borrow $800 to last them through the summer. And the banks won't give them these loans because they're sort of outsiders from the mountainous area. They're not city people. So we worked with Clay to write some legislation. We brought down some money. We built a second story to their school where Javier's kids go. We just really tried to help out, but we went back down there about a year ago, and they got to see the film. Yeah. Oh God. It's hard for me not to get choked up thinking about this, but these kids they're like family to me now. They're like brothers and sisters, and I know them so well. And Javier's kids are like, we've seen them grown up, and such a magical moment to see them in the theater watching this and giggling and laughing with each other. We went to one of the bigger towns where there was a theater and showed it to them, and yeah, it was really great. And they're doing well. I mean, this is still ongoing, and this is something that the war on drugs, what are we doing, and what's really one more thing upsetting is the whole thing that's going down with FARC and the Colombian government. They signed, which is just completely smoke and mirrors. They sort of, these PR people, said there's sort of peace, but yet amounts of killing and narco trafficking that's still going on from Peru straight up North Colombia, and it was by far give them cover. And now we have peace. They're still going at it, heavily. So. GoFundMe page, the Little Fireman Fund. You can Google that, and that'll come up. All that money gets. Who was the that we had? He's just such a great guy. So to good use too.
Okay, well we're gonna get started with Nancy Brian sharing this wonderful. Remember, I didn't have your friends for that GoFundMe